everyone. I hope you're well and you had a nice weekend and you're having a good week so far. So here we are, week 22 of Performing Arts online sessions with me, Gemma. If this is your first time, hello, nice to see you. And for all the regulars, I hope you're all right. And then hopefully it's not going to be too long till I can see you all again. Fingers crossed. So this week is a writing week, so you won't need half as much energy as you needed for last week's circus week. So you can get yourself a bit cosy, get yourself a pen, some paper, and then come back and we'll get started. Okay, so this week the theme is going to be the word change. So not every single activity is going to respond to that theme, but it's always, I think I've planned it all with that word in mind. So if you're getting stuck at any point, maybe think back to that word change and what that means. We're going to explore that a little bit later anyway. So for now, we'll get started with a warm-up activity. We're going to do some automatic writing, which we do quite often just to get us started. I will time a minute. I will give you a word and you just use that as your inspiration and just write. You don't need to worry about spelling or making the sentences perfect. It can be a list, it can be a story, it can be just, it can go off in different directions, it can move around anywhere it likes. It doesn't matter. I'm going to actually do the first one with you and then read out what I've got. I've realised I've never done that, I don't think. So that will just hopefully show you what it could be like, but also there's absolutely no wrong in automatic writing. It's just about getting those thoughts out of your head, continually writing for a minute if possible, and also unlocking some of those barriers that we have in our creative brains that go, that's not a good idea. No, don't write that, that's silly. Well, everything's good. So you've got to write continually for a minute. Anything that you think, oh, that's not right, just write it, because it gets it all out, opens those doors, and then when we come to write our stuff later, hopefully we're a bit more open to ideas. Right, so our first word, I better get the clock ready. I'm going to write along with you for this one, and then, as I say, read out what I've got just to give you an idea. The first word is going to be 1 minute, and you are to write as continually as you can. If you get stuck, just think back to this first word again and start you off in a new direction. So the word is water. Can be anything, there's no wrong, you just write. Okay, off we go. So writing, and your stimulus is water. Oh, time's up. A minute. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I didn't even give you any warning because I just got carried away doing it. So finish up what you are writing there. Just drawing on myself. And put your pen down and you can have a rest. Okay, it goes fast, doesn't it, when you're writing? Okay, so we just slightly went over a minute there. I'm going to read what I wrote, just to give you a bit of an idea, then we'll do a couple more and I'll be more on the clock. So water, wet, shower, refresh, wakes me up, I need it, I drink it, the plants drink it, it is clear, crystal, shiny, the sun on it is pretty, still and like a mirror, the bridge and trees look perfect, like an artist's picture. So that's what I wrote. I would love, I didn't finish the word picture, so I'll finish that because I like to keep this sort of thing. I'd love to hear what you've written, but obviously we can't at this moment in time. So hopefully that's helped you, give you some inspiration. So I sort of began somewhere and went somewhere else, had a memory, involved that, did some personal stuff, did some just imagery stuff, anything at all. Okay, next one then, and I'll be watching the time. The next word is walls. Put walls plural, but you could just put wall, as in a brick wall. Or it doesn't have to be a brick wall, but that sort of wall. I'm not talking about ice cream here. Although if you want to talk about that in your minute, there's no wrong. Okay, so wall. Off you go. 1 minute on the clock. Remember, there's absolutely no wrong. Try to keep writing the whole time if possible. If you get stuck, think about wall again. What does that mean? What do they do? What are they for? How do they make you feel? Describe the wall in your yard or your garden. Maybe you've made a wall. Talk about that. 15 seconds left. It's going really quickly. Okay, last couple of seconds to finish off your sentence or word that you're on. And freeze. Put down your pen, relax. Well done, very good. Okay, we're going to do one final one. So if you're a bit overloaded or your hands are hurting from writing or whatever, just pause the video at any time. That goes for any part of this session. You can always pause the video. And then just press play again when you're ready. So the last one we're going to do is the word photograph. Okay, photograph. And your time, you can have a minute again. Again, no wrong at all. You can just keep writing for a minute, anything about photograph. And just go back to that word if you get stuck. Off you go. Might be you want to describe a photograph, perhaps you can see one wherever you are. And describe what they do, why they're special, why you dread them, how you can take photographs these days. Okay, you're halfway through. Doing really well, only about 15 seconds left, right near the end now. All the time doing this, you're unlocking your creativity and hopefully stopping that voice that says, that's not a good idea, because that's not helpful. And all your ideas are good ideas. Okay, your time is up. Fantastic, well done. Put your pen down. You can relax for a moment. Well done, excellent. Again, I wish I could see and hear your work, and hopefully it won't be too long until we're back in the same space and we can share those things. Okay, next task is another sort of warming up activity, but thinking about our theme for the week of change, I have chosen a really small extract from a play, which is by a writer called Eugene Ionesco, and it's called Rhinoceros. I'm going to read it, it's only a few lines. It's the main character who says these words, and then your job is going to be to respond to that extract, okay? So you can continue writing what he might say, you can continue the play, what happens next, you can write something just inspired by it, so like we've done before there with the word photograph, for example, you've just used that as a stimulus and written something else. This play is called Rhinoceros, so if you're stuck at any point you could always write something about the animal. I'm going to give you a tiny little overview about the play just in case you're interested in reading it, but also to give you a bit of context. So it's written in 1959 by a French playwright, Eugene Ionesco. He's an absurdist writer, which means he writes things that are not naturalistic, not typical things that happen. For example, this play that I'm going to talk to you about is where people turn into rhinoceroses, so not a normal thing. He writes about his horror of conformism, so people conforming or having to conform to the rules of society. He writes about his horror of that generally, but through absurdist techniques, so having all his friends and everyone around him, the main character, turning into rhinoceroses, for example. Amongst other things, he also writes about feelings of alienation and the difficulty of communicating whilst writing it through surreal comedy. Okay, so he uses the method of surreal comedy to talk about feelings of alienation and difficulties in communicating. I thought they were really interesting things because they're the things that we've talked about before in our sessions and even created pieces of theatre around. He defined his own understanding of the term absurd, because that can obviously have a few different meanings. He said his understanding of it was, man is lost, all actions become senseless, absurd, useless. And another sort of summary of his work is that he explores the realities of the human situation. So, things that we are familiar with talking about really. He does that sort of exploration, but through surreal, absurd comedy, so people turn into rhinoceroses all around him. And if you feel like reading it, head down to your library, and there's several other plays as well. Eugene Ionesco is his name, and I will read you a little extract now, and then I would suggest you press pause on the video and just have a go at writing something inspired by it. Carry on the speech. The character that I'm going to read from is called Berenger, I think. So it's Berenger. So you can carry on speaking as Berenger. That's the main character who is the one seeing all this madness happening around him, this change, as people change into rhinoceroses gradually. You can write what might happen next in the piece, or you can just write something inspired. Okay, here's what he says. There's a whole herd of them in the street now. An army of rhinoceroses surging up the avenue. Where can I get out? Where can I get out? If only they'd keep to the middle of the road. They're all over the pavement as well. Where can I get out? Where can I get out? Okay, I'm going to read it again for you, and then press pause and just go for it. Again, there's no wrong really with this, it's just a warm-up activity, but slightly different because you're responding to a piece of text from this play. So, again, there's a whole herd of them in the street now. An army of rhinoceroses surging up the avenue. Where can I get out? Where can I get out? Oh, if only they'd keep to the middle of the road. They're all over the pavement as well. Where can I get out? Where can I get out? Okay, a panicky moment for Berenger. Press pause and have a go at writing something inspired by that. Obviously, if you need to hear it again, you can just rewind the tape and listen again. Okay. Excellent, fantastic. I say this all the time, but I'd absolutely love to hear your responses to that piece. And this is the sort of thing that we can discuss when we're back together again in the room, maybe. So if you've got a journal, I think you'd be maybe making journals or making notes, keep hold of them and bring them in with you, because it'd be great to explore it together. Right, next task then is we are going to consider the word change. So I was thinking lots of things have changed and continue to over the last 6 months or so. Obviously some major big changes, but then also down to simple things as well, with just the world that we've noticed perhaps at the very beginning when lockdown was on. Some really positive environmental changes happened for the world. Animals, we've seen dolphins and porpoises in areas where you wouldn't normally see them, all that sort of thing. The weather has changed quite a lot since then, and it's beginning to change again. So lots of things are changing. So I thought, first question is, what does that mean to you? What does the word change mean to you? So we're going to do an automatic writing. A minute, write the word change, and then write for a minute on change, thinking about your first thoughts, your initial thoughts on that word, okay? So that's our first thing. So write down the word change, and this is going to be our first outpouring of thoughts of what it means to you. 1 minute on the clock. Let's go. The word change. What does it make you think of? Halfway. How does it make you feel? For some, change is frightening. For me, it's a bit frightening. For others, it's exciting. It also does excite me in some ways. I'm a bit of both. You've got 10 seconds left now, so last things about change. Okay, fantastic. Put down your pens. Brilliant. Well done. So that's our initial first thoughts. Now my next task for you would be to write a list of the different sorts of changes we could experience. I've got a list here, it's quite short. I would offer it up to you to extend this list as much as you need to or want to. Okay, so it might be worth you writing these ones down. So and maybe a gap next to it, because I'm going to ask you to find an example of this type of change. So for example, a happy change. So you might want to write that on your piece of paper with a space to put an example. A surprising change. A sad change. An important change. And the last one on my list is an absurd change. So just like Rhinoceros, the player was just talking about something a bit absurd, so that's not likely to happen. Okay, now if you feel like you'd like to, continue that list. There's loads more things you could put. So you could do a disappointing change, a positive change, or a change that you fought for, a rewarding change. Lots of other ways that you could describe change. Go for your life, write as much as you like on that, that's absolutely great. And then your task is to write an example of all of those things. So I'm going to tell you what my list says. So for my happy change, I've put the weather. Today really reflects that actually, because it's been a bit grim. And today when I'm filming this, the sun's out, sky's blue, it's a happy change. A surprising change, I've put lockdown. I completely did not expect this to be the outcome. Pretty surprised by what happened in March, and obviously a huge change there. And that's another thing, you could write a small change, a large change, temporary change, permanent change. These are other things for your list if you want to expand that. A sad change, my example for that is someone moving away. Perhaps a friend or family member, they're not going to be down the road from you anymore. Maybe they're going to live in Australia or whatever. It can be sad. But on the other hand, can be also exciting. So you might want to add that to your list, an exciting change. An important change, my example is, well, I put law first of all. I was like, well, something maybe that happened, a change in the law. My example of that was going to be women allowed to vote. So obviously that happened quite a long time ago, but that is an important change that happened that's really had a massive effect since then. And the absurd change, my example of that is if cars could fly. Okay, so your job is to write this list, write as many different changes as you like on there, and then write an example, and it only has to be short like that, of each one. Okay, hope that makes sense. So you'll need to pause the video. Off you go. Excellent. So now you should have a list of lots of different changes and how they can be described. And for each category, I'd like you to write a couple of sentences about that change, okay? And we're focusing really on creative writing, so not sort of explaining what that means. So for example, my surprise change was lockdown. Don't necessarily want you to explain, okay, so what happened was we were told we were not allowed to go out, we were only allowed to go out for exercise. You don't have to explain what happened, but perhaps write a little script about maybe family members or people in the street saying, oh, this is going to happen, or it could be a script of the government telling us about that. It could be a poem, how it made you feel. It could be a monologue, so one person speaking, worrying about it, concerned about it, pleased about it. It could be a diary entry. It could be something personal to you. You could write something about how you felt when that happened, or it could just be a story, a fictional story about a family or a person who lived on their own who was realising what lockdown meant for them. So basically any form of creative writing that you like. You can use your personal experiences or make them up, basically. Now, if you've written a really, really long list of different changes, I don't expect you to do that for every single one. So on my list I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would try and aim and do 5, okay? 5, and really short bits of creative writing for each. Talking just a couple of sentences, just the start of an idea, because then we're going to choose one to develop. I'm going to give you an example. So my happy change was the weather, and I just wrote, not really thinking too much, this is what I wrote for that. Robin pulled her coat tighter as she walked through the park, the chill catching her sides and reminding her the power of nature. As the leaves fell from the trees, she considered how she might miss this daily commute. The summer had offered a welcoming path to work, often filled with colourful flowers, sunglasses and dogs who just want to say hello. Okay, so that was a little bit of creative writing about the change in the weather. And I've also done a little example for my important change, which was women being allowed to vote. Dear Diary, today something momentous happened. A change has finally come. The cause has succeeded and future generations will thank us. The suffragette movement has created a change for all women. So, very brief, just a couple of sentences, the start of some creative writing about at least 5 of those different changes. Okay, you're going to need to pause the video, spend a little bit of time on this, and then come back to me when you've done that. Okay, fantastic. We've done quite a lot of work already today. I've just got sort of almost one and a half final activities. And if you feel up for doing this, then absolutely. If you feel like you've worked hard enough writing, put them to one side and perhaps you want to do this another day. So my task now for you is to expand on one of those moments of change. So for example, for me, I might have decided to, okay, this suffragette Dear Diary, I might expand on that diary entry, then I might make it into a little script, or write a poem, or just finish the diary entry because I only really made a start. Talk a little bit more about it, how they feel, how they've been involved, all that sort of thing. So you can expand on one of those shorter starts of creative writing you've already done, or the other option would be to choose something completely different, something personal, and write an account of how things have changed for you in a positive or a negative way. And again, you can write in whatever form you like, whatever form you feel comfortable in: poetry, script, monologue, diary entry, story. What was the change and how were you affected by it? So you can choose to do something completely fictional and use one of those things that you've already started and just expand on that and develop it. Or you can think about your own personal experiences, think about a change that really affected you, either in a positive or a negative way, something that has happened in your life that has been a change that has had an impact on you in whatever way that is. and then write something creatively about that. So a poem or a script or a story or a monologue or a diary entry about your personal experiences. Okay, there's one tiny little bit more to do. So if you want to go off and do that, or you can listen to this final bit, it's up to you. But enjoy this last bit, and as I say, if you need to leave it for a few hours and come back to it, that's cool as well. Okay, enjoy. Okay, and the final task then. Thank you so much for working so hard today. I know there's been a lot of writing involved, so well done for everybody who stuck with it and got through every activity. The last one's really fun. It's just to choose a song to accompany your piece of writing, so sort of almost like a soundtrack for it. So it might be a song that reminds you of this time. If you've written something personal, it could be something that happened to you when you were a child. You might think, whenever I hear this song, it takes me right back to that age. Or it could be a song happening now, because you could have written something about something that's going on for you now. Or you could just pick a song that matches what you've been writing about. So for example, if I was to continue my suffragette diary entry, I'd have to try and find something that either was maybe from that time period, or that the lyrics, the words, the sentiment of the song reflected this feeling of this character's hope and joy of success and moving forward positively. Okay, so your last activity is just you pick a soundtrack, a track, to be part of the soundtrack of this piece of writing. And I like doing that every now and then because it's just nice. It sort of makes it feel a bit filmic. But also, if you've got a way to play that piece of music, maybe if you've got YouTube or whatever, then you can always play it and read your writing, or play it and write some more as a stimulus. Sort of brings it together as a performance almost of your writing. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Well done for today. Bye.